Funding for Schaefer-Ellis is provided by
Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video.
And the Oscar goes to Colin Firth,
Jean Dujardin, Daniel Day-Lewis,
Matthew McConaughey,
Eddie Redmayne,
Leonardo DiCaprio,
Casey Affleck,
Gary Oldman, Rami Malek, Joaquin Phoenix.
Huh. Those are all weird ways of saying Adam Sandler and Uncut Gems. Ever since I ranked the acting Oscar winners of the first half of the 2020s, I've had a craving to talk about even more Academy Award-winning performances. I have brain rot when it comes to this dumb award show. Plus, it's fun having an excuse for once to talk about real movies. Like The Joker, baby! I held a poll late last year that let you guys vote on which of the 4 acting categories you wanted me to cover first, and you picked Best Actor! Yippee! It's been commonly discussed by a lot of fans and pundits of the Academy Awards that the Best Actor category has kind of been cursed for a while now. It seems like this one in particular is a category the Academy can't stop getting wrong. And yeah, when you look at the lineup of 10 winners from 2010 to 2019, it isn't pretty. Frankly, I think this is a rather abysmal list of winners, with very few of them deserving the Oscar over their competition, or even deserving it in general. It's a mix of lazy career wins, makeup and prosthetic jobs that overtake the actual performances, and actors winning for performances that are weaker than ones they were nominated for and lost this same decade. To quote one of our great scholars, Jar Jar Binks, "This is nutsin'." Even though I like a couple of these performances quite a bit, there's only like 1 or 2 that I can inarguably say deserved the Oscar in their respective years. Actually, scratch that. There's only 1. Literally just the number 1 pick was a worthy winner. Every other one of these feels wrong in some way. But I suppose it is best to get the most egregious and annoying of these 2010s Oscars lineups out of the way first. It's also I can talk about J.K. Simmons and Whiplash one day. That day will come, I just know it. Anyway, let's get started with one of my least favorite Oscar winners of the 21st century. I really can't stress that enough. I despise this win so much, it makes me want to overthrow the entire British government.
Disappointment in the game of life.
I hate Gary Oldman's performance at Darkest Hour. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, it sucks! He is fully a caricature in this. There is not a shred of authentic humanity behind his ghoulish impression of Winston Churchill. This is the embodiment of the worst kind of Oscar-winning performance. One where an actor can comfortably hide behind an impressive makeup job that makes them look enough like a historical figure for the Academy to say, "Wow, it's really that person." Shut the fuck up, dude! I don't care how authentically he looks and sounds like Churchill. What about the actual performance is that special beyond the impression job? He yells a lot. Oh wow, that's so brave. And did I mention that he plays a real-life historical figure? Someone who doesn't look like him? Wow, that's so cool. Does he have a single scene in this where he commands the screen nearly as much as Daniel Day-Lewis in Phantom Thread or Daniel Kaluuya in Get Out? Well, he yells a lot and he gives speeches. Amazing. Maybe the movie is so good, it's convincing Academy voters to support him in Best Actor. Well, no, the movie is really boring and nobody would have talked about it if it wasn't for this performance. I guess that means the performance is so good that it just had to be recognized. No, are you even fucking listening to me? It is easily the most cynical and calculated Best Actor win of the whole decade. Gary Oldman is a widely respected and overdue actor who's playing a real-life figure in a stuffy, forgettable period piece where he becomes completely unrecognizable. Oh wow, I can't tell that that's Gary Oldman at all. Yeah, because they put a bunch of prosthetics on his fucking face, you idiots. You've been duped. There's nothing impressive about his borderline parody portrayal here. Oh, I'm Winston Churchill. I'm going to lead Britain against Hitler. Give me an Oscar. Even within this movie, you have Ben Mendelsohn playing King George VI, and he is so much more effective in this smaller part than Gary Oldman is. Without the aid of prosthetics to disguise him, he has to put in a lot more effort into actually performing and letting the emotions of the character take center stage. I don't believe any of Gary Oldman's emotions in this. I guess he does the angry yelling scenes well enough, but it truly is nothing special. special, and there's no sincerity behind anything else he does in this performance. I haven't seen them all yet, but this honestly might be my least favorite Best Actor win of the century so far. It is just a completely obnoxious and brain-dead choice on the Academy's part. I'm not saying we needed to give Daniel Day-Lewis a 4th Oscar for Phantom Thread, but God, Oldman is not even in the same league as Day-Lewis in that movie. And again, Daniel Kaluuya in Get Out would have been ridiculously inspired. Or we could have given it to Timothée Chalamet for Call Me By Your Name right off the bat, to spare him the current humiliation ritual the Academy is putting him through. I think that's the final nail in the coffin for this performance. The fact that it won over such outstanding competition. F you, Academy. I can't believe I had to rewatch this piece of shit movie again.
I don't like Star Wars.
You know what? That's fair.
You know, I think Rami Malek is a little bit overhated in this movie. I think he's at least worthy of second to last place instead of dead last. Because yeah, I don't really like him in Bohemian Rhapsody. I also don't like Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie, not the song. It is a standard, played out, by the books, boring as sin biopic with another somewhat inhuman impressionist at its center. Much like Gary Oldman in Darkest Hour, I don't get a lot out of Malek's interpretation of Freddie Mercury emotionally. It's like he was way too caught up with getting the impression right at any given time that he forgets to put any real emotion in his more vulnerable scenes. Lucy Boynton kind of acts circles around him in any scene the two of them share. And I just don't think he fully captures Freddie's passion and energy. It doesn't help that you can look at a side-by-side of the actual Freddie performing at Live Aid versus Malek's impression of him. I just don't know how else to put it. Malek looks dead inside in comparison to the real thing. There's so much more life in Freddie's eyes and feeling in his gestures and movements. I generally don't like when actors win for biopics because it feels like the Academy is only considering the quality of the impression without considering if the actor has constructed a truly three-dimensional person with their performance. That's not me saying it's impossible to do that with a biopic performance or that I dislike all Oscar-winning biopic performances. My favorite Best Actor winner of the 2020s so far is Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer. Because apart from just looking and acting like the real guy, that's a fully three-dimensional performance that embodies arrogance, fear, and the absolute despair of a broken man, all in the span of one movie. If Oppenheimer wasn't a real person, Cillian Murphy would still be widely praised for this performance. If Freddie Mercury wasn't a real person, is there anything truly remarkable about what Rami Malek is doing in this movie? I guess you could argue it's pretty impressive how spot on his singing voice is. I mean, it sounds just like Freddie. Oh, what's that? It was the real Freddie Mercury? Rami Malek was just lip-syncing the entire time? We're still gonna lavish this performance with awards and let him sweep the season, even though there wasn't even an attempt to embody the single most remarkable thing about Freddie Mercury, his singing voice? I'm not saying I needed Malek to attempt to sing like Freddie. Obviously that's a fool's errand, and I'm perfectly okay with him just lip-syncing. But if you're gonna give him a Golden Globe, Screen Actors Guild Award, BAFTA, and Academy Award for portraying Freddie Mercury, I don't know. Doesn't that seem a little absurd for someone who doesn't actually perform any of these songs? You know, Taron Egerton sang all his songs in Rocket Man, a performance that was 10 times more vulnerable and compelling than any scene Rami Malek has in Bohemian Rhapsody. And he didn't even get a nomination. Doesn't that strike anyone as a little fucking ridiculous? I don't know. Yeah, the more the years go by, the less patience I have for this Oscar win, which I didn't really hate on the night. I mean, I thought he was the best part of an underwhelming movie, and he certainly has some charisma and charm. Plus, I have no opinions about his competition. Hey wait, I just noticed Willem Dafoe got nominated for that Vincent van Gogh movie where he's looking up. You know, the funny meme where he's looking and he looks silly. That's not really related to anything. What was I talking about again? Oh yeah, the Oscars were kind of washed in 2018. And I don't think Rami winning over this competition was as egregious as Gary Oldman the year before. To be honest, I just hate that win so much more for how cynical it is. At least Rami getting it didn't feel like a lazy career win. And he was able to emote a little bit more since the prosthetics on him were less aggressive. But yeah, I don't know. These two are kind of interchangeable. I just think the performance in Darkest Hour is way more embarrassing. But yeah, the bar truly is in hell. And now we're gonna give out the Oscar for the best website builder of all time. The only nominee is Squarespace. Obviously. Let's talk about it now. Squarespace is a wonderful online website builder that enables you to create beautiful websites for your business or personal hobby. I adore how easy they make it to showcase your expertise and engage clients with video content on your website. You can make stunning video libraries and even monetize your content by adding a paywall. Perfect for online courses, exclusive tutorials, and premium workshops. If you want to get discovered fast, that's where integrated Squarespace SEO tools come in. Every website is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions, an auto-generated sitemap, and more, letting you pop up more often on search engines and attract way more customers. Squarespace also offers lots of built-in donation tools. You can create a professional, on-brand website that makes it easy to accept one-time or recurring contributions, and engage your supporters. Use built-in email campaigns and marketing tools to connect with your community and inspire more people to support your cause. Check out squarespace.com/ShayFrillis for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use promo code ShayFrillis to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I had never seen The Artist before making this video, and now that I have, did they just give this Best Picture for the bit? Like, ooh, someone made a silent film in 2011. We gotta give it Best Picture because of how novel of a gimmick that is. I mean, it's a good movie, but it's also so slight and twee with the most basic plot you can imagine for a movie like this. Wow, it's about a silent film star who can't adapt to talkies. How riveting. You know, I could just be watching Singin' in the Rain right now instead. At least that has awesome musical numbers. Hell, I could be watching Minions and Monsters right now. What are we doing here? The movie is still fun, with a lot of style and some great sequences. I particularly like everything with the dog. But I'm kind of struggling to figure out why exactly Jean Dujardin needed to win Best Actor for this performance. He is certainly charming and charismatic as this famous actor, but his character and performance both feel rather one-dimensional. He has to convey this guy's anguish at being left behind by his industry using just his facial expressions and body language. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I was fully convinced. It just kind of feels like he's going through the motions in terms of the performance here, conveying sadness and frustration adequately enough when the scene calls for it, without any of his expressions really lingering or leaving a lasting impact. He's pretty good in the scene where he burns the film reel. That's probably his best work in the movie. But overall, it's just kind of a fine but rather unspecial performance. I feel like there's a million actors who could have done what he does in this movie. Absolutely nothing about it screams Academy Award winner. Also, the sound mixing in this movie is awful. I couldn't hear any of his dialogue over the music. What idiot made this?
The brilliant physicist Stephen Hawking?
Oh boy, another biopic. Great. This time it's Eddie Redmayne winning for his portrayal of Stephen Hawking in the pretty damn boring The Theory of Everything. Is he pretty good in this movie? Yeah, sure. Is he superior to Michael Keaton's phenomenal, bold, career-reviving performance in Best Picture winner Birdman or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance? Absolutely not! I remember this being a huge shock on the night. Since again, Birdman really cleaned up, winning Best Picture, Director, and Original Screenplay, while Best Actor was the only win of the night for The Theory of Everything. Obviously, I was rooting for Keaton, but I also think I preferred Benedict Cumberbatch in The Imitation Game and Steve Carell in Foxcatcher over Redmayne. We don't talk about American Sniper. Anyway, it really isn't like Redmayne is bad in this movie. His portrayal of Hawking is likable and sympathetic. I don't know if he sells the horror of getting diagnosed with this disease all that well, though that might just be a limitation of the script rather than the performance. What he does sell very well, however, is the physicality and the limitations in his body movement and voice. You can tell it probably took a lot of work to get that right. It's an impressive performance from a technical perspective, but it's pretty standard from an emotional one, and I really struggle to remember any scenes of his I was particularly affected by. Maybe that one at the end where he imagines himself picking up the pen, but that's not really because of the performance, you know? Ultimately, it's just hard to muster up much to say about this one. It's functional but forgettable, serving as a pretty good portrayal of a real-life figure that nonetheless feels so boring and safe as an Academy Award winner. Still, I can't believe his wife left him to be with Daredevil. That's kind of fucked up.
Your Majesty, it's time for your speech.
Much like the artist, The King's Speech is a perfectly nice movie. Did it deserve to win Best Picture over stuff like Black Swan, Toy Story 3, Inception, True Grit, and The Social Network? Absolutely fucking not, but it's a nice, agreeable watch, especially because of the lovely middle-aged yaoi vibes between Colin Firth's King George VI and his speech therapist, Jeffrey Rush. Hey, wait, King George is that guy Ben Mendelsohn played in Darkest Hour. What are the odds? This movie also has its own depiction of Winston Churchill as a minor character. And I'm gonna be honest, there is nothing Gary Oldman does in Darkest Hour that is significantly better than what this guy does in this bit part. He won because of the makeup job, let's be real. Anyway, sure, nobody really thinks this movie deserved Best Picture, but did Colin Firth at least deserve Best Actor for playing this stammering, self-conscious man thrust into the role of king? Absolutely fucking not. Did you see what Jesse Eisenberg was doing in The Social Network? While we're at it, this movie shouldn't have won Best Director either. Not just because of The Social Network, but also because we shouldn't have enabled Tom Hooper like that. We could have aborted Cats before it happened. Okay, back on topic though. Is Colin Firth at least good in this movie? Yeah, I'd say so. He's very human and sympathetic in a way Gary Oldman wasn't in Darkest Hour, since the focus is less on accurately portraying a historical figure and more on bringing out the humanity in this guy as he struggles with an issue that a lot of people can relate to. He sells the anger and frustration he feels over his stammer very well, and he's very sympathetic when he has to break down or relay his deepest, darkest secrets to his quote-unquote trusted friend and partner. I know they're both married to women, and I don't know if there's any historical basis to back this up, but god, they feel so gay in this movie, it's crazy. Easily the best scenes Firth, and the entire movie for that matter, have, is anytime he's interacting with Jeffrey Rush. Their chemistry is really captivating. But with that said, I couldn't help but feel watching this that Jeffrey Rush kinda commands way more of the screen than Firth does. He brings even more humanity to his character. He feels even more three-dimensional even though the movie isn't focused on him. Maybe he's more commanding because the character is more outgoing, but even then, I came out of this thinking about Rush's performance a lot more than Firth. Firth is really good in this, but I genuinely don't think there's anything exceptional here that warrants a Best Actor award. Jess suggested that maybe it's a career win for him playing Wet Mr. Darcy in the Pride and Prejudice miniseries, which if so, fair enough. I don't know much about this race since I wasn't actively following the Oscars until 2012, but I think he might have just been swept up in the King's Speech hype, considering it took home picture, director, and screenplay. He's certainly not a bad winner, especially when you compare him to some of the other dog shit earlier in the list, but I wouldn't say he's a particularly inspired or worthy one in this movie. I've heard he was better in A Single Man, which he was nominated for the year before, so this could be a makeup win for that too. Like I said, I really don't know, but all I know is Jeffrey Rush kinda outmogged him and didn't win supporting actor, so whatever, I guess.
Well, I can't stand this cold anymore. I'm gonna die.
Back in my day, there was this entire internet meme making fun of the fact that Leonardo DiCaprio had never won an Oscar. It was a huge thing here on the web, and it feels so quaint to look back on now that the Academy finally tossed him one for The Revenant. And I mean tossed him one. This is one of the quintessential examples of a career win / apology Oscar, rivaled only by Al Pacino winning for Scent of a Woman. It's not that Leo is bad in The Revenant, it's just the fact that, well, this is like his 15th or 16th best performance in the movies. It's crazy, because you got Tom Hardy in this movie giving arguably the best performance of his career, going above and beyond just to keep up with the average Leo performance. Even then, I feel like the script just gives Hardy more to do as an actor. Leo's role is to get mauled by a CGI bear and then spend most of the movie grunting and groaning. But you know what? Damn, does he perform that job admirably. He has to convey the pain of a man who lost everyone and everything he holds dear without much assistance from the script. But wordlessly, he makes you believe he has nothing left to lose. And when he has to speak in that pained whisper, it's really chilling and effective. Plus, I mean, he wasn't really getting mauled by a bear. You gotta give him props for acting that out incredibly well. Overall, though, I don't think there's a lot to say about this performance. It is strong, but even at the time, there was kind of this understanding that they weren't really giving him the Oscar based on this performance. They were giving it to him because of all the behind-the-scenes insanity that was being reported about how he nearly killed himself filming this movie in the harshest of conditions. On top of the general agreement that he had been snubbed for too long. Does this performance remotely compare to what he did afterwards in movies like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Killers of the Flower Moon, or One Battle After Another? Oh, not even close. But, you know, they already gave him his Oscar. He doesn't need to win again for significantly better performances. Don't be silly. Again, there isn't a whole lot wrong with this performance, outside of it just being relatively unexciting as a piece of DiCaprio's repertoire. I think everyone was pretty happy with this on the night, and are still pretty happy with it retroactively. I mean, it's not like his competition was that strong. I like Matt Damon in The Martian, but come on now. There was no reason not to give Leo an Oscar for eating raw bison meat and looking sad while doing it. I know I sound dismissive when I say that, but genuinely, at this point, his constant losses were getting insane. Very good and competent performance that I do not think about that much. What are you gonna do? Alright, good news. We finally made it to the great performances. The 4 Oscar wins this decade that I actually do consider to be Oscar worthy. In a vacuum, I do still think the competition some of these guys faced in their respective years was a little bit stronger. Case in point, Matthew McConaughey and Dallas Buyers Club. Let's just get this out of the way right off the bat. It should have been Leo! His performance in Wolf of Wall Street is one of the best of the entire decade. It is honestly ludicrous that he did not win for this, and instead won for the grunting bear attack movie. Matthew McConaughey, frankly, does not compare in this movie to Leo in The Wolf of Wall Street. But that said, he's really good in this. He's playing a real life person, but not a super famous one like Freddie Mercury or Winston Churchill. So the focus here is much less on the impression job, and more so on just how commanding he is as Ron Woodruff. He is an absolute fire to his voice and mannerisms as he butts heads with the healthcare industry in the midst of the AIDS crisis. He believably goes from a homophobic bigot to someone who would fight to the end for his new trans bestie. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, there's a fictional trans woman in this played by Jared Leto, who also won an Oscar for this portrayal. Yeah, when I get to Best Supporting Actor in the 2010s, I gotta talk about that. Isn't that great? Well, today we're just here for Matthew McConaughey, and he is unquestionably great in this. I was genuinely inspired by his confident, no-nonsense demeanor when it came to helping his fellow AIDS patients. It's sad to see him break down, it's great to see his moments of triumph. He just has this undeniable, effortless Texas charm, while also selling the emotional low points very nicely. It's not the most stunning performance in the world or anything, and I don't think he needed to nearly sweep the season that year, but it is pretty damn great in my opinion. And f*** Jared Leto. God, I hate his guts. We gave birth to old Abe Lincoln. I had to watch Lincoln a 5th time? Are you kidding me? When will I be free of this boring-ass movie? It has none of the filmmaking ingenuity I associate with Spielberg. The screenplay is repetitive, and it rarely feels like anything is actually progressing. And to top it all off, Daniel Day-Lewis is... Actually, I don't think I have anything bad to say about his performance here. I mean, it's Daniel Day-Lewis. He's known as the greatest living actor for a reason. He completely loses himself in the role here and embodies Abraham Lincoln flawlessly. Whenever I pictured Lincoln in my head as a kid, this is pretty much spot on to what I imagined. And it's such a far cry from Gary Oldman's take on Winston Churchill, too. Not only is the makeup way less intrusive, but there's a warmth and sense of humanity to Day-Lewis's take on the 16th president. He's usually calm and soft-spoken, but when he monologues or tells a story, you listen in awe, just like everyone else in the room with him. It's incredible how much power he commands while still maintaining that friendly and soft demeanor. But you also get glimpses of the man behind the mask, who struggles to maintain his relationships with his wife and son. It's pretty rare that this side of Lincoln pops up in the movie, but when it does, the vulnerability is also portrayed very well. The film is well acted all around by the entire stacked supporting cast, on top of great work from co-leads like Tommy Lee Jones and Sally Field. But Day-Lewis is head and shoulders above everyone else in this film. But with that said, is this even the best Day-Lewis performance to win the Best Actor Oscar? Absolutely fucking not, dude. I haven't seen My Left Foot, but I can say with certainty that he was honestly far better as Daniel Plainview in There Will Be Blood, a movie he won the Oscar for 5 years prior to Lincoln. I'd also put his performance in Phantom Thread above Lincoln, and I think that discrepancy just boils down to those roles being a bit meatier and more challenging. It's not an easy feat as an actor to do what he accomplishes in Lincoln, but once you get past the pitch-perfect tone he sets as this famous historical figure, the performance kinda stops surprising you after a while. By the end of the first hour, it's like, yep, he's still Abraham Lincoln. He has plenty of great scenes in the latter half of the movie, but nothing truly exceptional that you couldn't have gotten out of the first hour or so. Again, compare that to Daniel Plainview, where his performance keeps shocking you right to the end. What I'm trying to say is that his performance in Lincoln is a perfectly agreeable reason to give him a third Best Actor trophy, but it's just not that exciting, or a performance that truly sticks with you as much as his absolute best work does. Looking at the lineup this year, I can't speak for Denzel Washington in Flight since I haven't seen it, but the competition is pretty strong. Bradley Cooper in Silver Linings Playbook is good. Hugh Jackman in Les Mis is honestly a really well acted and devastating performance that showcases his range as an actor very well. How do I feel about his singing in the movie? Well, I support his acting in it, but me personally, I think I could have lived without Day-Lewis taking this one in favor of the lead performance of Paul Thomas Anderson's follow-up to There Will Be Blood, The Master. I watched this movie for the PTA ranking and was just blown away by what Joaquin Phoenix does in this film. I found it to be even more compelling and commanding than Day-Lewis's technically flawless, but not super enthralling work in Lincoln. This was the year to give it to Phoenix, I thought. But obviously, everyone knew Day-Lewis was unstoppable in 2012. Meryl Streep didn't even drum up any suspense when she announced the winner. She opened the envelope before coming out on stage and then flatly said, "And the Oscar goes to Daniel Day-Lewis." It was pretty funny in the moment, but it's also like, I don't know, why did this need to be a foregone conclusion? I think Phoenix should have taken it. But he would at least get his due 7 years later in...
Looking cool, Joker!
Alright, just hear me out on this one. I don't really like Joker that much. I mean, it's not awful, but it is incredibly derivative, and the plot is pretty hackneyed. It rips off a ton of older, better movies, and its attempts to fit into the wider Batman mythos are just the tiniest bit incredibly cringe. But with all of that said, I think the people who have a completely understandable hate boner for this movie tend to dismiss what a great job Joaquin Phoenix is doing. He is carrying so much of this movie on his shoulders with his stunning portrayal of this unhinged madman. I see people making their little posts about how horrible the Best Actor lineup has been the past 10 years, and they include him as one of the examples why. But like, if I can ignore how boring Lincoln is in order to praise how great Daniel Day-Lewis is in it, I think I can also overlook how weak the screenplay to Joker is and give its central performance the credit it deserves. Basically, what I'm trying to say is Joaquin Phoenix is great in this movie, and I'm exhausted from acting like he isn't. He runs the full gamut of being sympathetic, terrifying, vengeful, and even a silly little guy. It's a very tricky balancing act where acting too pathetic would prevent his murder scenes from landing effectively, but also acting too evil and bitter would prevent him from believably becoming this charismatic figurehead in his crusade against the evils of society. This is certainly the most popular and talked about performance in this video, which, you know, obviously doesn't automatically mean it should be ranked high. But I think there is something to be said about how instantly iconic Phoenix's portrayal of this classic character became. So many of these scenes and line deliveries have been burned into the public consciousness, which is largely because of how perfectly he delivers them. The entire climactic scene with Murray is an acting masterclass from Phoenix. We all love "you get what you fucking deserve," but the thing that really gave me full body chills was when he says, "There is no punchline. It's not a joke." He's just killing it in this movie. I don't know what to tell you. He perfectly portrays this character with all of his terrifying and tragic mannerisms. It makes him feel like a believable human being, despite how larger than life the character tries to portray himself as. Now, much like Leo, this certainly isn't the best Joaquin Phoenix performance. Sometimes it kind of just feels like a "sorry we didn't give it to you for The Master" Oscar win. But while he's definitely better in something like The Master, his performance here is a lot more interesting than than Leo's in The Revenant. Did he trample on anyone else who really deserved it this year? Well, Adam Driver was fantastic in Marriage Story, but I didn't really have a preference one way or the other between him and Phoenix. I love Taron Egerton in Rocketman, like I said, but he definitely didn't need to win. A nomination would have been just fine. I think the only performance I can confidently say should have beaten Phoenix here is Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems. Oh wait, that wasn't nominated. I forgot the Academy hates Adam Sandler, except when he's in Click for some reason. Well, among the nominees, I really don't mind Phoenix winning. He was very much overdue. And even though this isn't his best performance, it's still great and easily his most iconic. Again, I do not love the movie, but I struggle to really knock the performance that much. Maybe it can get a little too showy and over the top sometimes, though that is kind of just how the character is. Even so, he has great line deliveries, great nonverbal acting, great body language. He's just great in this. But I gotta give the edge to one other person. Yeah, this really wasn't hard at all. Easily the best performance to win Best Actor in the 2010s is Casey Affleck in Manchester by the Sea. It's not a biopic performance. He's not playing a real-life person with the aid of extensive makeup work. He wasn't overdue and receiving a pity Oscar for being snubbed throughout the years. It is just Casey Affleck giving a performance where he is forced to act his ass off. But it's also not a showy, over-the-top, look-at-me performance. Most of his work in the film is incredibly subtle, as he brings to life this horrifically grief-stricken man, bolstered by the excellent Oscar-winning screenplay by Kenneth Lonergan. I know what you're thinking. Yes, he is the guy who wrote The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. Peak. Like, unironically, both of these screenplays are so good for completely opposite reasons. I would use this as an excuse to talk more about the sheer glory that is The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, but I don't have 5 hours, so let's just get back on topic. Affleck has the one big scene that everyone knows in this movie, where he recounts the details of a horrific accident that happened to him. I'm being vague though, in case you haven't seen the movie. I know I just said everyone knows the scene, but they might only know it from the reaction gif where he's about to shoot himself. All I'll say here is that it is absolutely mortifying, and he perfectly and devastatingly portrays the horrible situation this man has to go through in this scene. And it does a lot to inform how closed off and unwilling to feel anything again he is throughout the rest of the movie. It's one of the best portrayals of sheer emptiness after a traumatic event that I've ever seen. Like, the only one in recent memory I can compare it to is Jeremy Strong in season 2 of Succession. It's a much more difficult emotion to accurately portray than you might think, because it's more than just acting sad and mopey. He truly feels like a walking husk in this movie, with absolutely nothing left to live for. And this sheer lack of emotion is, ironically enough, what makes his performance so captivating and impossible to look away from. It's easily the most immersive and believable Best Actor win of the decade. And it's the kind of performance I really wish the Academy would reward more. A biopic win every once in a while, like Daniel Day-Lewis, is fair enough if it's truly exceptional. But making this fully formed, original character out of nothing and completely selling his sorrow, rage, and the sheer lack of will to go on living is far more impressive in my opinion. His complicated relationship with his nephew is sold incredibly well. The brief glimpses we see of his relationship with his ex-wife tell a captivating story with very little screen time. I really can't overstate just how good of a win this truly was. A lone, unquestionable banger in a sea of generally mediocre wins this decade. Best Actor was a pretty close race that year between Affleck and Denzel Washington in Fences, who, to be honest, might have also topped this list if he had come out on top and beaten Affleck on the night. He's incredible in Fences, certainly keeping up with Viola Davis, who won the Oscar for that movie. In the wrong category, but you know. I also love Ryan Gosling in La La Land, but yeah, he really only needed the nomination for that. I also should say that I don't like Casey Affleck as a person. He's a bit scummy. But we are judging the performances here, and this one is kind of unquestionably the best. So congratulations to Casey Affleck for giving the only universally liked Best Actor winning performance of the 2010s. And thank you to the screenwriter of The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle for directing such a performance. Well, that's the 2010's Best Actor ranking. Honestly, while these wins aren't the best in a vacuum, I still found most of these performances to be pretty solid. Only the bottom two were kinda subpar in my opinion. And while the 2020s still have their fair share of bullshit in this category, we are getting some really outstanding wins now and then, like Cillian Murphy and Anthony Hopkins. So the future is, well, I guess a little less bleak for this category than it was in the 2010s. Anyway, let's wrap this up with a ranking of all 10 of the winners' Oscar speeches, because that was a lot of fun when I did it for the 2020s acting winners. Number 10, Joaquin Phoenix. What an interesting guy, that Phoenix. I'm absolutely not opposed to actors using their Oscar acceptance speech as a chance to speak about a political issue they're passionate about, but usually it hits the hardest when it's tied into the movie and the performance they actually gave. Like, Leo speaks about an important political issue in his acceptance speech, and he does so succinctly, while also tying it into his experience working on the film. I just don't know if Phoenix rambling about cows and the milk industrial complex really had the same meaning. I don't want to disparage him for being passionate about animal rights, but it takes up most of a speech that has absolutely nothing to do with the people who supported him in this performance. He acts a little above the Oscars, which, to be clear, I don't think is a bad thing. You shouldn't take this dumbass awards show more seriously than actual issues plaguing the world. But the speech nonetheless felt a little awkward and meandering, with no words of thanks towards anyone in his life or who worked on the movie. It was at least nice how he ended with a quote from his brother River. Number 9, Jean Dujardin. Fine, but kinda forgettable speech. Thanks for the fun fact about the length of the first Oscars, I guess. And the little shout he does at the end is kinda nice. I don't know, not a lot to really care about here. Number 8, Matthew McConaughey. He was doing pretty decent for a while there, thanking all the most important people in his life. But I think he lost me a little bit with that whole me in 10 years speech. It's kind of a nice message, but it was delivered in a pretty clunky and rambly way that just went on and on. I find it really funny that the audience didn't clap for this part, but they did clap for alright, alright, alright. Yeah, I don't hate it, but it's not one of my favorite speeches. Number 7, Casey Affleck. The primary thing I remember about this speech is Denzel Washington's reaction. Affleck thanks Denzel for teaching him how to act and notes that he just met him today, which is a sweet sentiment. And then we cut to Denzel looking supremely unhappy. Some people in the comments on YouTube said he was trying to hold back tears, but I don't know, man. He just looks pissed to me. Maybe he just didn't want to be at the Oscars that day. I wouldn't either. Jimmy Kimmel was hosting. Anyway, the speech is really short, and Affleck even acknowledges that he wishes he had something more meaningful to say, but it's passable enough, and it's nice to hear him thank his family, Kenneth Lonergan, and Matt Damon. Number 6, Colin Firth. He's pretty funny and down to earth in this speech, but it does kind of go on for a while and feel a bit rambly. Also, I have to dock points for thanking Harvey Weinstein. And Tom Hooper. Number 5, Gary Oldman. Perfectly fine little speech. Nothing too memorable about it, but he is very nice and gracious to a lot of people in his life. I really cannot stress this enough. You might think I hate Gary Oldman as an actor, but I do not. I just think this performance in particular is one of his weakest. He's pretty chill, I like him. And yeah, nice little speech. I like when he shouts out his mother and how she's older than the Oscar, which he's now bringing home. Charming. It was also nice when he thanked his friend Denzel. I think the contrast between how warmly Denzel looks at him versus how pissed he looked at Casey Affleck the previous year is really funny. I also think it's really funny how in every speech during the 2017 Oscars, you either have someone mention the jet ski that Jimmy Kimmel gave out to whoever had the shortest speech, or you see the Dia de los Muertos petals scattered throughout the theater after the performance of Remember Me from Coco. Future Oscar historians might be so confused about why both of these things show up in Gary Oldman's speech. Number 4, Eddie Redmayne. I always found his boyish excitement at the prospect of winning this Oscar to be really charming and cute. That little wow he does has always stuck out in my mind in a positive way. And it's really charming how he talks about taking care of the Oscar and being its custodian and all that jazz. It's nice that he dedicates it to all the people struggling with ALS. And in general, there's such a warmth and genuine sense of giddiness from winning the Oscar that nonetheless should still have gone to Michael Keaton. Number 3, Rami Malek. This one's just really sweet. Even if it was pretty awkward how he had to sidestep around mentioning the pedophile who directed his movie, on its own, it's a perfectly lovely speech. I like when he talks about telling little Bubba Rami that this would happen to him one day, and noting how they made a film about a gay immigrant who achieved tremendous success. It's also a very humble speech since he talks about not being the obvious choice. And in general, he just seems immensely grateful for such a high honor. Can we talk about the part when he said, "My dad didn't get to see me do any of this," and then one lady in the audience cheered?
You know, my dad didn't get to see me do any of this. He's not...
Like, hell yeah, your dad is dead and he didn't get to watch your Oscar-winning performance. What the hell was wrong with her? Number 2, Daniel Day-Lewis. I always remember this one for the killer jokes about being committed to play Margaret Thatcher while Meryl Streep was going to play Abraham Lincoln, as well as him saying he had to convince Spielberg that if he was going to be cast, then Lincoln shouldn't be a musical. But it's also wonderful seeing how humble and gracious to his fellow nominees, the first ever recipient of 3 Best Actor Oscars is. There's such a genuine twinkle in his eyes when he talks about how he receives so much more than his fair share of good fortune. And I thought his tributes to Kathleen Kennedy, Tony Kushner, Spielberg, and Lincoln himself were incredibly lovely. Side note, it's kind of nuts that this was the first time in Spielberg's entire career that he directed an acting winner at the Oscars. We never cut to him looking proud of one of his performers winning an Oscar until 2012. That doesn't seem right. Number 1, Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, obviously. Not only was this an incredible moment, seeing arguably the most overdue actor at the time finally get his win, but his speech is so eloquent and gracious without feeling rehearsed or phony in any way. He thanks and praises so many people involved in the cast and crew, and even expresses his gratitude to the first director who ever cast him in a film, and Martin Scorsese for teaching him so much about cinema. And he very naturally ties the themes of the film into his passionate concern about climate change. I really like his message calling for people to support leaders who speak for all of humanity, and indigenous people in particular. Even Joe Biden was impressed, I think. It's hard to tell with that guy. But yeah, this was pretty easily my favorite speech of the night, and my favorite speech among these 10 Best Actor winners. It's the only one I've gone back to now and then, because it just feels good to see Leo win big. And it's not like he has any other Oscar acceptance speeches for me to watch. Anyway, that's about it. I think at some point I'll do Best Actress, then I'll move on to the supporting categories. And then maybe I'll move back in time to the 2000s. I could talk about a much better Daniel Day-Lewis Oscar win if I did that. We'll see. Good night, Academy.